Welcome back to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Jackson Tolliver. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you'll see I'm a little more comfortable right now than I have been in the past. This is my new place. I moved. I haven't been on here in 3 months, I think. A lot's been going on. So, for the few people that listen to the show for now, we're back. All right, we're grinding. The only way to go from here is up. I now live in the Fenway area. Really cool, right near the park. Great spot to be. But yeah, I've been moving. And if you don't know, I think I mentioned it in the last episode that I was starting full time at CLNS Media. Great spot if you want to check out. If you like this podcast, if you like what you're listening to, we do coverage of all the major sports teams in Boston, specifically the Celtics and the Patriots and the Bruins. We're really on top of those sports. I was just at Gillette Stadium on Sunday. We were covering Drake Maye's first start, which of course we'll get into here. But of course we're going to be covering the Celtics all season at opening night next Tuesday. Can't wait. A week from tonight. It's going to be a blast. But we have a lot to talk about today, so let's just get into it. I want to start with the most pressing thing right now, which is obviously today. I'm recording. It's Tuesday, October 15th. Let's talk about Drake Maye's first ever NFL start. It was a 41-21 loss to the Houston Texans in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium. Like I said, I was there for the game. It was a lot of fun to see in person. Definitely you felt like you were witnessing some type of history, not just because of, Drake Maye starting and ushering in the new era for the Patriots, but also he played a damn good game. Now, here's the thing. I think it's impossible as a Patriots fan to walk away from that Houston Texans game, and feel disappointed. Fully disappointed. Of course, you're always disappointed with a loss, and you'd like to get a win, especially against the Texans. They're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, realistically. You can't beat yourself up too much because the Patriots lost that game if you're a Patriots fan. I choose to take away what I think is the ultimate positive here, which is that Drake Maye looked the part. I think it's really difficult to come away from that game saying that Drake Maye didn't look the part. Now, was he perfect? No. But no rookie quarterback has ever been perfect in their first game. I mean, that's just unreasonable and unrealistic. If you think about back to week 1 of this season, when you had 3 rookie quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, all starting for their teams. None of them threw for any passing touchdowns, not just that week, but the week after. And it was a rough showing. Overall, Caleb Williams, yes, the Bears won, but he threw for less than 100 yards, and his defense and special teams really had to play a phenomenal game to get that result. Jaden Daniels didn't start off that hot. He was probably the best out of the 3 to begin, and he's still the best out of all the rookie quarterbacks, I will say. If you've been watching the show, you remember I was really high on Jaden Daniels. I thought they definitely should have taken him. Didn't work out that way. I'm happy with Drake, but I digress. Bo Nix didn't play well in his first game either. Through 2 weeks, Drake Maye hadn't played a single NFL snap, and he was tied with all the rest of the rookies combined for passing touchdowns. Now you see Drake Maye play his first game against the Houston Texans, who are without a doubt a Super Bowl contender, right? They're so strong on both offense and defense, and look at that front 7 that they have. Look at that pass rush that they have. They have Will Anderson Jr., who was the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year, and they added Danielle Hunter, longtime All-Pro defensive end, formerly with the Vikings. Will Anderson specifically just gave this Patriots offensive line a nightmare. We know all season that this Patriots offensive line has been bad to begin with, but also extremely banged up. They lost their captain, David Andrews, for the season. They've been dealing with, different left tackles, specifically Vidarian Lowe has been dealing with some injuries. Chukwuma Okorafor, walked away from the team. Don't really know what's going on there, but he might be done with football. That was supposed to be a short-term answer for you. Caden Wallace goes down with an ankle injury, promising-looking rookie out of Penn State. So the offensive line is already under some considerable fire in every game they go into, not just against the Texans, who have an incredible pass rush. So to put Drake Maye into that situation in his first game, it'd have been different if you put him against Miami last week, because they're already losing a ton of pieces. But this game, the Houston Texans have probably the biggest challenge of a defense that he's going to play, besides maybe the Jets and the Bills, but for the rest of the season. If you look at their schedule down the road, it gets a lot easier from here. So I walked away from this game feeling very encouraged. Obviously, he started out slow out the gates. He was nervous, you could tell. I don't know if on that first series when he airmailed to Pop Douglas, I don't know if that was a throwaway or if he was actually trying to reach him. It was an egregious sail on that throw if he was actually trying to hit Pop Douglas. But he started off slow, to be expected. The first pick, really bad. You can't make a throw like that in the NFL if you want to be successful. So started off really slow. But as the game progressed, and even Drake Maye said this earlier in the week. He said, I told my teammates I'm going to be nervous. You could tell. But as soon as it came to that 1 minute drill, whatever happened, he just came alive, right? And that's not to say that there weren't other mistakes that he made throughout the game, because of course there were. But that throw that he made, the Kayshon Boutte, with I believe it was 16 seconds remaining in the half after it was completed. I have not seen a Patriots quarterback make a throw like that since Tom Brady was in Foxborough. Still. I mean, Mac Jones has never made a throw like that in a Patriots uniform. He did at Alabama, but there was more separation, but I digress. That throw that he made, right in the bucket, perfect accuracy, everything about it was perfect. That is a all-pro level throw. That is a Super Bowl level throw. And that alone shows you why Drake Maye was taken at 3, and shows you why everyone's been gassing him up for months since he has been drafted, because that's the kind of stuff that he can do. He can make athletic plays like that. He can wow you with his arm. He can wow you with his off-platform, off-schedule throws. But that one, I mean, if you watch his progressions, he looks over the middle. He sees Pop Douglas. He sees the safeties there in the middle of the field. Now, Pop Douglas would have been open because Pop Douglas actually ended up beating him on the crosser route. But after he looks there, he glances. He looks over to the right, sees Kayshon Boutte in one-on-one, and he doesn't look away. He has the utmost confidence that he's going to make that throw, and he just drops it in the bucket, man. And that place, the stadium, went crazy. I don't think a stadium's been that loud since Tom Brady was still here, right? And they started off 8-0 or 9-0 or whatever in 2019. There was a sense of rejuvenation and energy that found the stadium because they finally have a quarterback that can do that. We as fans finally get to watch the Patriots actually make big plays down the field because of Drake Maye. Solely because of Drake Maye. Jacoby Brissett, say what you want about him in his first few weeks. He's never making a throw like that. Ever. I mean, there are so few people in the world who can make a throw like that. And Drake Maye did it. So to have somebody like that in the boat, on the field, who can make those plays, that's huge. And then I thought he did great to start off the second half. Now the Hooper fumble, that's all on him. That's unfortunate. And the strip sack fumble, I don't really blame Drake for that. I more blame the offensive line for not keeping him protected. I mean, he was blindsided. And again, you're talking about the Houston Texans, who have one of the best, if not the best, pass rushes in the NFL. So I don't blame Drake Maye for that. Strip sack. And then the tipped interception. It's like, could you imagine a more freak play ever happening? Like, it's tipped up. The guy who intercepted it's getting blocked and falling down, and the ball just falls perfectly right into his hands. It almost looked like he wasn't even trying to catch it. So don't blame him for that one really either. Yes, he missed some throws that he would probably want back. But like I said, that's going to be the case with any rookie quarterback. They're not going to be perfect in their first game. He's not going to be perfect next week or the week after or the whole season. It's all about improvement and building. No one's really expecting the Patriots to do anything this season, and now they're sitting at 1-5, so their playoff odds are basically already, to the ground. They would have to pull off something really remarkable to make a playoff run. So you're just trying to build this year. So Drake Maye is going to play the rest of the season. Hopefully he can stay healthy. That's the real concern with this offensive line. He's going to play, and I'm sure we're going to see more plays like we saw on Sunday's game. I mean, you just have to hope that you see more, and it's so refreshing as a Patriots fan to see something exciting on the field for once. Even in the Bengals game, week 1, that the Patriots won, it's like you didn't even feel like it was all that exciting because it was just kind of boring football. It's just boring football to do. Ramondre Stevenson runs for the first 2 downs, and you make like a 3-yard completion, and you just keep going, and you chew the clock, and you have good clock management, and you play good defense, whatever. We want to see big plays. And you finally have somebody in there who can make big plays consistently and hopefully make the New England Patriots a winning football team again. Last thing I'll say about the Patriots before I move on is if you look at the schedule moving ahead, they had this game against Jacksonville in London coming up on Sunday at 9:30. I fully expect to win here. I mean, how can you not? Because despite the final score of this Houston game, losing by 20, it felt much closer than that. Halftime, it's a 1-score game. They had multiple chances to come back into it, but 4 turnovers, it's going to be tough to come back from that, realistically speaking. So there's obviously things to clean up, and the defense has to clean up. They've lost so many pieces. I think losing Jawan Bentley is huge because he's not only just a great player, but he's their vocal leader. Trading Judon, losing Barmore, hopefully he comes back soon. But the defense needs to figure out as well. And it's not an excuse that they've lost so many pieces because, as Devon Godshaw said post-game in the locker room, they lost pieces last year too, and they were still elite. So I don't know if that's a coaching thing, if it is a personnel thing, if it's a... it is, they got to iron it out. But my point is, I think Jacksonville on Sunday, they had the same record as New England. It's a very winnable game, right? They each have one win, and now you have Drake Maye, who I think could tear up that Jacksonville secondary and really do some amazing things against this defense. Now, Jacksonville's offense on paper is still tough. Trevor Lawrence is still a good quarterback, but they've struggled for whatever reason. I haven't watched, I haven't dissected their film like I have for the Patriots and really been able to diagnose exactly why. But I think their defense is obviously really struggling. Their offense is going to be difficult to contain, and they're going to be looking at this game the same way that the Patriots are looking at this game, which is that it's a huge opportunity for a bounce back. So we'll see what happens, but I would expect the Patriots to win this game. I expect Drake Maye to make some more huge throws and introduce himself to the international stage. That would be a great way to get his first win in London. That'd be cool. Let's move on and talk about a team that actually is expected to win a championship this year. The only team in Boston that's basically expected to win a championship this year. The Boston Celtics, who are going to be kicking off their season next week against the Knicks at TD Garden. That'll be a fun one. Where do I even start? Because I feel like since I haven't made an episode in 3 months, and now I'm, getting back on the grind. Let's talk about bringing back everyone, right? Bringing back Tatum on that long extension. We all knew that was going to happen, but bringing back White, bringing back Hauser, locking in all your guys to stay long term. That is an incredible luxury that most championship teams who are looking to repeat do not have. They steamrolled the league last year. Yes, there were injuries in the playoffs. Yes, teams were not at full strength, and the Celtics did get lucky on that front, barring they did lose their starting center, who they're going to start the season without, by the way, in Kristaps Porzingis. But being able to bring all your guys back who just showed that they can win a championship very easily, frankly. I mean, they didn't really struggle at all throughout that whole playoff run. So showing that you can bring everyone back and run it back and try to do it again, they should be the heavy favorites to win again. They didn't really add much because they don't have to. Lonnie Walker, don't know if he's going to make the roster yet or not. They signed him to an Exhibit 10 deal. He had a really good game in the last preseason showdown against Toronto when they benched all their starters. The Celtics did. And the Celtics actually beat Toronto with a couple of their starters, and they were resting some guys, but they had Scotty Barnes, obviously the face of their franchise right now, and Jakob Poeltl. I think those are the only two real mainstay starters that they had in there. But the Celtics were able to handily win that game. Even though the Raptors did make it a little closer at the end, it was just too little too late at that point because the Celtics had blown up a 30-point lead by halftime, which is insane. So yeah, I think the Celtics should again be considered heavy favorites to win it this year. I personally am not scared of Philly. Paul George just got injured last night, which, that's very unfortunate, but that's sort of what you're expecting when you get a player like Paul George. You know he's injury prone. You know he's getting older. Joel Embiid is injury prone. So, barring injuries, assuming they can get to the postseason fully healthy, they will be a threat. I won't lie. They're deep. They have that big three, but they also got some super underrated additions. They got Caleb Martin. They got Reggie Jackson. They got Eric Gordon. So, veterans that have proven NBA experience that they're now going to have on this roster. They're a deep team. They're a good team. It just doesn't move the needle for me. I think that Joel Embiid, even if he is healthy, I still am concerned about how he performs in the playoffs and how we've seen him perform in the playoffs against the Celtics multiple times. Paul George has had his playoff woes as well. So yes, you have guys who are proven. You have proven NBA veterans, but you don't have proven championship veterans. And that's something that concerns me with Philly. New York, I like the move that they made. I like getting Karl Anthony Towns, but I think they gave up too much. I think Dante DiVincenzo was huge to that team. Everybody remembers that big play he made in that series against Philly, where he hit that three. He was their best shooter, I would argue. And he just, obviously was huge for the chemistry as well because they all went to Villanova, whatever. I think he feels very slighted by this move, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season, you look back on how Dante DiVincenzo has performed, and you think, maybe the Knicks gave up a little too much because they gave up Randall DiVincenzo and a first-round pick via Detroit. So that's a pretty hefty package to pay for a guy who, again, is a veteran at this point. He was drafted in 2015, but struggled mightily in that series against the Mavericks in that Western Conference Finals series last year. He had a really rough series, was a huge part of the reason why they lost. And again, somebody who's not very playoff proven, which I think this New York Knicks team really needs. They need experience because a lot of guys on this team, yes, they've been in the playoffs, but they haven't made it deep. I'm trying to think if any of them, I think Brunson was in the conference finals, I want to say, with the Mavericks against the Warriors in 2022. But if you look beyond him at the rest of the roster, you don't have a lot of proven, championship experience guys. I do worry about their center depth. Yes, they have Cat starting, but he's had his injury issues in the past. Mitchell Robinson is one of the most injury-prone players in the league, so I worry about their front court depth. But the combination of OG Anunoby, who they were remarkable with when he could play last season, and Mikal Bridges is definitely something to be concerned about, especially for the Celtics. You can see exactly why they made that pairing, because they want two guys who can defend Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown at an elite level. So the Knicks, to me, are the immediate threat. They're much more threatening than Philadelphia, just because they are a team to me that is crafted to, if fully healthy, pose Boston with the biggest challenge. So that's concerning. I think they're going to be really good on defense. Mikal Bridges also helps them a lot with their injury troubles that they've had, because he obviously, knock on wood, of course, is the NBA's Iron Man. He hasn't missed a game since he's been drafted. So that's going to help them a lot, just to have a level of consistency that they've really lacked. For whatever reason, some people say it's because Tibbs is working them too hard. I don't know. I don't really put any stock into that. I think it's just, frankly, bad luck. So hopefully for them, they can overcome that. I would love to see a Celtics-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. I think that would be electric. Obviously, Boston and New York have such a huge sports history. They're two of the most popular teams in the league. They're probably, I would say, the two most popular teams in the East. So that would be electric to see. I'm excited to see that opening night matchup. I think Boston will struggle without KP against them. Al Horford hasn't played yet in the preseason. He's apparently going to play tonight when the Celtics play Toronto at 7. But, we don't know how that's going to go. Luke Cornett is going to be your backup center, maybe your starting center, and Al comes off the bench, by the way. We don't really know. Either way, it's going to be tough to replicate what KP does for this team. But I say that, and they were fine in the playoffs last year without him. So I don't know. It's really hard to predict. Excuse me. I almost had to sneeze. It's really hard to predict, but I still would take the Celtics to win, just because why wouldn't I? I mean, they've looked perfect in the preseason. They're 4-0. I assume they're going to go 5-0 tonight if you look what they did the Raptors on Sunday, and now they're going to play Tatum and Brown and so on and so forth. So I don't have any reason to doubt the Celtics in any game, period, this season. They're going to be the favorites in every game, I would assume, barring injuries. And I'm not going to pick against them at all, because why? Like you'd be dumb to pick against them in any game. They're the reigning champions. They brought everyone back. They look better than ever through this preseason. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have something to prove after the summers that they went through, where Tatum was benched in the Olympics. That's crazy. Jaylen Brown wasn't even selected for the team. That's also crazy. So they have chips on their shoulders. They're the most motivated, I would say, championship team trying to repeat ever, because they now have something to prove, which is a good thing. And Joe Mazzulla loves it, because he's a sicko, and he wants these guys to have something to prove in that chip on their shoulder mentality. So, like I said, I wouldn't bet against them in any game, because they're the best team in the NBA until proven otherwise. And I am beyond excited for this thing to start. I mean, looking at how they've played in Abu Dhabi, close one in that first game against Denver. Second game was a runaway. And then you had the Philadelphia game where, yes, Philadelphia didn't play any of their starters or even some of their bench veterans that I mentioned before. Celtics won by 50. And then the Raptors game, they were up by 30 at half. Before in the fourth quarter, they put in, the real G League guys, J.D. Davis and Drew Peterson. And they sort of let it slip a little bit, but they still came out with the win. So I'm beyond excited to see what's in store for this season. If if you're looking for some bold predictions, I think Tatum could win MVP this year. I mean, they're starting off without Porzingis, so I assume that his volume is going to be higher and his scoring numbers are going to be higher. His jump shot looks a lot better this year so far through just the preseason, but he did mention a lot on media day, and we've seen it through training camp so far that he has adjusted his release a little bit, looks a little bit faster, not as much of a hitch on the jump shot. So I fully anticipate that jumper to be better. I expect his shooting numbers to go up, and I, again, expect Boston to be the best team throughout the regular season because we've just seen how they treat the regular season compared to how other teams treat it, right? They take every game seriously, and that is a sense of such pride for them and for the city of Boston. Every game matters. Every single game matters. The preseason games matter, right? They want to win every single game. They hate what it feels like to lose because Tatum and Brown have felt it over and over and over again, coming up just short. They don't want to do that any night, any game ever. The media hates them. They bash them in, and they just want to win. All these players on this team just want to win, and Mazzulla just wants to win. And Boston Celtics basketball has now become a brand of, first of all, math, which I think is cool because I do like math. They're going to shoot this many threes, and if they shoot X percent, if they make X percent of those threes, they're going to beat you. That's awesome. I love that stuff. And the hard-nosed defense with, Drew Holiday and Derek White, the best defensive backcourt, one of the best defensive backcourts the NBA has ever seen. And just, top to bottom, the vibes are great. It's just such a thrill to be a Boston Celtics fan right now. It's such a privilege, and enjoy it while you can, folks, because obviously there is the ownership situation. We don't know what's going to go on there. And there's the, pending doom of you're paying these guys $500 million that's $500 million. And it's hard, especially when you're bringing a new owner, to front that bill and potentially lose money. Even if the team wins a championship, you're still not even breaking even. So that's hard to do, and something that I give credit to Wick Grausbeck for being able to put the team first above his own personal finances. But I don't think that every NBA owner, whoever the next guy is, or gal, whoever the next person is to own the Boston Celtics, I don't think that that's something that they would want to do necessarily. So that's my 2 cents. Enjoy it while you can. This season, I expect another resounding success, barring any freak injuries. I expect the Celtics to repeat again. The teams I can see beating them, I don't see Philly. I do see New York. And in the West, Denver is Denver. And even though the Celtics did beat them twice in the preseason, they fell to them twice in the regular season last year. And Jokic is just a beast. And he's really the only player in the NBA that I feel like the Celtics have no answer for. Just no answer for. I mean, nobody in the NBA really has any answer for Nikola Jokic because he's the best player in the league. And he's shown that time and time again. Wemby will reach that status soon. I have my NBA fantasy draft tonight. I'm picking second overall. I'm taking Wemby. To be honest, I'd take him if I was going first. I'm super high on him this year. That'll be fun to watch. But yeah, that's the Celtics. I very much look forward to previewing more in depth the New York Knicks game next week, Tuesdays, which is today. The new date of Title Time Talk is going to be every single Tuesday, just once a week. I should have mentioned that off rip. But let's move on. Let's talk about the Bruins, another team in Boston with, I would say, relatively high hopes. Not as high hopes as the Celtics, of course, because the Bruins have fallen short in the postseason for the past 2 years against the same team, the Florida Panthers, who've now beaten them twice to start the season. The first game last week was really brutal. The score ended up looking closer than it was at the end, but they just came out hot. The Panthers did. Started off 2-0, then it became 4-1. I believe the final score was 6-4. And, that's a 2-goal game, but that wasn't really the story of the game at all. Florida dominated the game in every single way. The Bruins were turning the puck over too much. The defense looked soft. It just really took them some time to gel in that game and sort of find their identity. But then moving on, they really did find it in their next game against the Canadiens and the Kings in the following game. The Kings game, they won in overtime. Pastrnak needed that clutch moment because I think there's a lot of question marks around David Pastrnak heading into this season after he really struggled, I would say, in last year's playoffs. He, by many people, is considered to be a top 10 guy. Can he continue that this season? There's a lot of question marks around that. There's a lot of question marks, of course, and this is why some people might give them a pass for that first game against Florida around goaltending. Jeremy Swayman signed that extension. How will the Bruins look this season without their tandem of Ullmark and Swayman? They're just giving the keys to Swayman now. They gave him an 8 by 8.25 deal. Is he the guy? Can he be the guy on his own? I don't know. Can the defense be better than they were last year? They brought in some new guys. They brought in Zadorov, who I think is a very good addition. He's a tough player, and the Bruins need some toughness. He hasn't looked all that tough so far throughout the season. The defensive unit as a whole hasn't looked all that tough throughout the season, but I think that was a good addition. Elias Lindholm, I think, was a good addition. You needed some center help, obviously, after Bergeron retired. Last year, I think that was a huge problem for them, the center position. And to bring in a guy like Elias Lindholm, has already shown he can score, that's a huge addition for them. So I like the moves they made. Now you just have to put it all together. I think if this season ends without a strong result, maybe not a Stanley Cup, but at least like a conference finals, I think Jim Montgomery loses his job. This roster is very talented from top to bottom. They do have, while it is an aging roster, with guys like Brad Marchand, who are coming towards the end of their careers, they still have a very talented roster, and they should be top title contenders every year. Didn't feel like they were title contenders last year. 2 years ago, they definitely were, and they frankly choked in the playoffs. 2 years ago, I think everyone thought they were going to win the Stanley Cup because they had that historic regular season, but they fell short. So I would say this is Montgomery's real last go with this team if it doesn't go well. This is his last chance to really prove that the Bruins are a top-level contender in not just the East, but in the entire NHL. They have to do well this season. Now, beyond that, I like also some of the lower-end guys that they have on not just the first line, but Kostelic has looked really good so far. I like Mason Lowry. I like, some of these other guys they have. I like Beecher. I like, just some of these guys they have on like the second, third, and fourth lines that I think can contribute on a high level. I think that's good stuff. I think the Bruins top to bottom, like I said, are good. It's just the question is, can they compete with Florida? And so far, the answer to that question is no, because they lost both games. They lost yesterday and they lost last week. One of them was in Sunshine, Florida, and the other one yesterday was at the Garden. So it's tough to make the argument that the Bruins are prepared to beat Florida right now. Now, barring last year, the Bruins beat Florida all 4 times, and then they lost to them in the playoffs. So it depends on how much of an indicator you want to make the regular season. Sometimes it is a huge indicator, and sometimes it's not. That's just how hockey is. And really every sport, you never really know what's going to happen once it comes down to crunch time in the playoffs and so on and so forth. But like I said, I like the additions that the Bruins have made. You just need to see the mesh, and you need to see, frankly, better coaching. Because Jim Montgomery, I think there's a lot of question marks brought up about the way that he's managed this team. But yeah, I have high hopes for the Bruins. I really do. They should still be second in the Boston sports team's power rankings, despite a 2-2 start, if you want to call that rough. Both those losses came against the reigning champions, so we still need more time to see how they're really going to look this season. But like I said, the roster top to bottom is good. It's elite, I would say. Pastrnak is arguably a top 10 guy. He needs to get back to that level where he's really producing on a nightly basis. But I like the additions they made, Zadorov and Lindholm specifically. I think those guys can really contribute at a high level, and I think this Bruins team can really make some noise this season. Let's move on to the Red Sox. It was tough to make podcasts this summer because I was so busy, but it was also so tough because I just got so infuriated with the Red Sox that I didn't want to talk about them and just the Red Sox on a daily basis. Because first of all, I will say I was impressed with a lot of what the Red Sox did this season. I don't think by any means it was a failure of a season. The rise you saw in Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu, Cedar Rafaela, and these younger guys that really stepped up to the plate, no pun intended, this season, that was something to marvel. Tyler O'Neill, he was hot and cold. That was a good addition. They should keep him on the roster, without a doubt. Rafael Devers, hot and cold. But when he was hot, he looked like one of the best sluggers in the MLB, period. So I was impressed with what they did, but it's just so hard when they just imploded again. It's just so hard to support this team all summer when they're rolling. And it feels like it's been the same story now for 3 years in a row. They're rolling, and they're doing so good in July and June and like the first half of August, and then everything just falls apart. And for this year, it felt like that Diamondback series where they got swept. And then I think that was right before they went into the Blue Jays, I want to say, where they had the doubleheader and they lost both those games. That's when you really felt like it was over. The Blue Jays were really struggling all season. and the Red Sox couldn't get that done. So, like I said, it's tough it's a tough season to evaluate because there are so many things that you take away and you're like, that was awesome. Tanner Houck was an all-star. He didn't do nearly as well for the second half of the season. But that's something to build on. Brian Bayo had his moments. He looked really good. So it's tough to feel completely negative, especially when you have three of the top 100 prospects, three of the top 50 prospects coming into the system next year, you would anticipate, in Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, and Christian Wilkins. So it's tough to feel negative about the team right now because you do have those guys coming in who are going to help you. It's just the pitching. And I feel like Red Sox fans, we've said it every single year. It's just the pitching. Like, the batting is good, the hitting is good, but the pitching at some points this year was unwatchable. Zach Kelly, specifically, should not be allowed to play baseball anymore. You had guys like Isaiah Campbell, who they played for the first half of the season, who would come in and single-handedly blow a lead every single time. Zach Kelly was really, really struggling. Kenley Jansen at times was struggling, who's almost certainly gone now. And yes, they had some bad luck too. The Trevor Story injury was hard to overcome. They signed James Paxton to be a starter, and he got injured in his second start, I believe, maybe his third, and he's now going to retire. So, it wasn't all self-inflicted wounds. They had some issues with luck. Casas was obviously injured for a long period of time, I believe from April to September. So yeah, it's tough, but at the same time, I feel like there were things that seriously could have helped them that they could have given them. Pitching is the big one. Obviously, if they were to give them pitching help, that would be huge. And I think, again, Giolito got injured before the season started. That's a huge blow. You had guys that were in and out of the IL, like Chris Martin, Kenley Jansen. So it's tough. I get it. But they need to make some acquisitions this offseason, without a doubt, because if you look at them compared to a team like the Yankees, they're still very far off. Even though they did decently well against the Yankees this year, when they caught them during those hot streaks, some of those Yankees games were the moments of the season for me. Masataka Yoshida, who also had a great season. I didn't mention him. Keep him around too. I believe in Masataka Yoshida. When he hit that home run when they were down 3-1 to tie it 3-3, and then it was 5-3 in the ninth, and they beat the Yankees that game. That was awesome. There's that comeback at Fenway Park where Masataka Yoshida, I believe, hit the go-ahead RBI. He just balls against the Yankees, man. So, like I said, there was the one where Rafi Devers hit that home run against Garrett Cole to win the game as well. Maybe it was to tie it. I believe it was to win it. Either way, they had some great moments against the Yankees this year. But if you look top to bottom at what the Yankees are doing right now in the postseason, when I would assume they're headed towards the World Series right now, they're up 1-0 on Cleveland as I speak right now. But if you look at that situation, it's just tough to imagine the Red Sox being on that level of competition with them as the roster stands right now. Now, could Rafi be a top 10 guy in the MLB? I don't know. Could he? Maybe. He's not going to be Aaron Judge ever. But I think what the Yankees lack in a supporting cast for Judge and Soto, the Red Sox make up for. I think the Red Sox have a better, 5 to 9 in their lineup than the Yankees do. But they still need to add on to that. Now, could they go and make a splash for a guy like Soto, whose contract is up? I don't know if you would want to do that. I don't know if the Red Sox would want to do that when you could make the argument that offense wasn't the problem, it was pitching. I think the Red Sox will go forward with pitching as the first thing in mind for Craig Breslow and the front office, because that's what has lost them so many games, not just this season, but for seasons past. So could they get another bat? Could they maybe trade for a guy like Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Maybe. But pitching is definitely the one thing that I would watch for most this offseason. There are some guys out there that they could swing for. Jack Flaherty maybe, who they were looking at deadline day, reportedly. They could go for somebody like that. Just a proven veteran. They're going to need a new closer. I don't know if they trust Justin Slayton enough to be that guy for them because Kenley, I assume, is done. So, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do going forward, but they do have some young pieces. Bayo was promising. Slayton was promising. Houck was promising to start the season. Crawford, in and out. Pavetta had his moments. But you need, first of all, Giolito to come back, which I assume he will. And then you need to get some more pieces for sure, without a doubt. So that's my state of the Red Sox right now report. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about them much for weeks to come because there's not going to be much to talk about. We'll see when the offseason really starts to get going with free agency and trades and stuff like that. We'll evaluate that as it goes. But going forward, it's going to be mostly Patriots, Celtics, and Bruins. The Revs I don't even want to talk about, man. I mean, what an absolute disaster season for the New England Revolution. Like that's another part of me not wanting to record. It's like, what am I going to come on here and talk about the Red Sox and the Revolution as the Red Sox are imploding and the Revolution never even had any solid ground to stand on whatsoever all season. That was just a disaster season. And then giving away DeJuan Jones and having him score on you with the very first goal in that Columbus game this past weekend. I mean, arrow to the heart, man. Arrow to the heart. So hopefully they can figure it out. Like I said, I'll talk about them throughout the offseason too, but like, what am I going to do right now? Talk to you about the Revs, you're all going to turn it off because they just had such a bad season and it's just tough. It's just tough to talk about, frankly. So they got a lot of work to do. The Red Sox have some work to do. We're locked in on the Patriots, looking towards the future with Drake Maye. The Celtics looking to repeat with chips on their shoulders and not backing down from any competition. And the Bruins trying to prove that they are still Stanley Cup contenders. This has been Title Time Talk. My name is Jackson Tolliver. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's like, I really do appreciate some support that I got from a few of you guys, like Tendo on Instagram. Shout out to you if you're listening right now. Appreciate you reaching out. Like, honestly, that's the kind of stuff that really keeps me motivated to keep doing this. Doesn't really matter to me if I have 1 listener or 1,000. I just am trying to get better. Like, being a sports reporter is my dream. This is a really, really good way for me to pursue that dream. And I'm not going to give up on that dream either because that's what I want to do. I love being a producer right now. I'm super thankful to CLNS for giving me that opportunity. But like, being on the air is, I feel like, what I want to do. It's what I'm most passionate about. So I appreciate any of you guys who stick around through the whole podcast and continue to support me. It really means a lot. So thank you so much. This has been Title Time Talk. I will see you when I see you next Tuesday. Peace.